like to express my gratitude to President Ramaphosa for his warm welcome. I hope that the outcomes of our summit will have a positive impact. Rising protectionism, high global debt, rapidly aging populations, competitive pressures, and geopolitical tension.
Küresel büyüme görünümünü zayıflatıyor. Bu nedenle G20'nin sürdürülebilir kalkınmayı destekleyen ve kapsayıcılığı güçlendiren bir anlayışla işbirliğini daha da derinleştirmesi gerekiyor. 2030 sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin esasını oluşturan kimseyi geride bırakmama taahhüdümüze rağmen bugün dünya genelinde her 10 kişiden biri hala aşırı yoksullukla mücadele ediyor. 2024 yılında %9 azalan toplam küresel kalkınma yardımlarının 2025'te %17'lere varan düşüşleri görmesi bekleniyor. Bu durum maalesef Afrika kıtası için çok büyük kayıplara işaret ediyor. Komşusu açken tok yatmayan bir anlayışın temsilcisi olarak üzerimize düşen sorumluluğu her türlü menfi koşula rağmen yapmaya devam ediyoruz. Resmi kalkınma yardımlarımızı 2023'te 6,8 milyar dolar seviyesinden 2024 yılında 7,4 milyar dolara çıkarttık. Ancak bu yardımlarla hedeflenen menzile ulaşmak imkansızdır. Özellikle en az gelişmiş ülkelerde yerel kaynakların harekete geçirilmesi suretiyle sürdürülebilir kalkınma için finansman modelleri geliştirilmesi önemsiyoruz. Bakınız, karşı karşıya olduğumuz sınamalar sadece en az gelişmiş ülkeleri değil, tüm ekonomileri etkisi altına almıştır. Küresel finans krizi öncesinde ticaret küresel büyümenin en güçlü motoruyken kriz sonrası dönemde tablo köklü biçimde değişmiştir. 1987-2007 döneminde dünya ticareti yıllık ortalama %7 oranında artarken 2008-2024 döneminde %3'lere gerilemiş, küresel büyümeye katkısı belirgin şekilde zayıflamıştır. Bugün küresel ticaretin yeniden canlanması için daha köklü bir uluslararası işbirliğine, yeni politika araçlarına ve sürdürülebilir tedarik zincirlerine ihtiyaç duyuyoruz. Uluslararası ticaret kurallarının kalkınmayı destekleyecek biçimde güçlendirilmesini ve bilhassa Dünya Ticaret Örgütü'nün özel ve lehte muamele ilkesine bağlılığımızın teyit edilmesini mühim görüyorum. Kıymetli katılımcılar, bugün dünya genelinde toplam borçluluk oranı küresel hasılanın %324'üne ulaşmış durumda. Türkiye'de ise bu oran %89 seviyesinde seyrediyor. Bu görece düşük borçluluk düzeyi bize hem yapısal dönüşümü hızlandırmak hem de yatırımlar için ilave kaynak ayırmak için önemli bir mali alan sağlıyor. Ancak ne yazık ki düşük gelirli ekonomilerin çoğu bu imkana sahip değil. Bu ülkeler yüksek finansman maliyetleriyle daralan mali alan arasında adeta sıkışmış durumdalar. Birleşmiş Milletler'in 2025 borç raporuna göre 3,4 milyar insanın yaşadığı ülkelerde faiz ödemeleri sağlık ve eğitim harcamalarını aşmış vaziyette. Bilhassa düşük gelirli ülkeler için borç yeniden yapılandırma süreçlerinde adil ve eşit muameleye dayalı bir yaklaşımın benimsenmesini destekliyoruz. Türkiye olarak G20 ortak çerçevesi kapsamında katkı sunduğumuz Gana ve Etiyopya'nın borçlarının yeniden yapılandırılması sürecinde alınan mesafeyi memnuniyetle karşılıyoruz. Bu örnekten hareketle kimsenin geride bırakılmadığı, daha kapsayıcı bir küresel ekonomi inşasında tüm G20'yi daha fazla sorumluluk üstlenmeye davet ediyorum. Sizleri sevgiyle, saygıyla selamlıyorum. Kalın sağlıcakla.
Thank you, President Erdogan. I wish to apologize that there was a system failure, particularly with Channel 11. We are now going to get a direct translation from the interpreter. Seemingly, there was a failure in synchronizing the speech with the translation. So we will allow the interpreter to interpret what President Erdogan was saying. Please go ahead.
Distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, I would like to extend my warmest greetings to all of you. And I would like to express exceptionism, elevated debt levels, a rapidly aging population, and intensifying competition, in addition to geopolitical tensions. All of these issues are creating a major weight on global growth outlook. And therefore, in this vein, the G20 must further deepen cooperation with an approach that supports sustainable development and contributes to enhancing inclusivity. Despite our commitment to leave no one behind, which forms the core of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, today, 1 out of 10 people worldwide faces extreme poverty. Official development assistance in global level, which declined by 9% in 2024, is expected to fall by as much as 17% in 2025. Unfortunately, this situation points to substantial losses for the African continent. As Turkey, we continue to fulfill our responsibilities despite all these negative circumstances. We increased our official development assistance from $6.8 billion in 2023 to $7.4 billion in the year 2024. However, it is impossible to achieve development targets solely over ODAs. We attach particular importance to developing financing models for sustainable development through mobilizing domestic resources, especially in the least developed countries. And let us be clear, current challenges affect all economies across the globe. Trade used to be the strongest engine of global growth prior to the global financial crisis. However, the situation has fundamentally changed in the post-crisis period. Between 1987 and 2007, world trade expanded at an average annual rate of 7%. However, during 2008 and 2024, this slowed to around 3%, significantly weakening its contribution to global growth. Today, reviving global trade requires deeper international cooperation, new policy tools, and sustainable supply chains. Strengthening international trade rules in a manner that supports development, and in particular to reaffirm our commitment to the World Trade Organization's principle of special and differential treatment, is very crucial. The total debt to GDP ratio now stands at 324%. In Turkey, however, this ratio is at 89%. This relatively low level of debt provides us a valuable fiscal space to accelerate structural transformation and also allocate additional resources for investment. Unfortunately, most low-income countries do not have this advantage. These countries find themselves squeezed between elevated financing costs and severely constrained fiscal space. According to the United Nations 2025 A World of Debt report, in the countries home to 3.4 billion people, interest payments now exceed total spending on health and education. We support applying fair and equal treatment in debt restructuring processes, particularly for low-income countries. As Turkey, we welcome the progress made in the debt restructuring of Ghana and Ethiopia, to which we have contributed under the G20 Common Framework. Drawing on this experience, we call on all G20 members to assume greater responsibility in constructing a more inclusive global economy where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Erdogan. We apologize for the failure of the system there. I now have the opportunity to call upon His Excellency Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Well, President Ramaphosa, let me start by thanking you for hosting us here, the first G20 on African soil, which is a proud moment for South Africa, but one that, in my view, is long overdue. So let's make this summit count. It's striking, listening to the contributions, that across our different corners of the globe, we're all concerned to achieve the same thing for our citizens: good jobs, lower bills, higher growth, better living standards. And that is what my government is focused on. And we want to work with our partners around the table to make that happen. But there's no doubt the road ahead is tough. This is a moment of mounting competition and crises around the world. And that, I think, has been mentioned by pretty well every contribution so far. Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world. With all that in mind, and echoing what others have said, the role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace, as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. The G20 has worked together before to fix fundamental problems in the global economy. We need to find ways to play a constructive role again today in the face of the world challenges. And I'd like to see us come together around a 5-point plan for growth that leaves no one behind. First, we do need to tackle global imbalances, like excessive surpluses and deficits, which can disrupt trade flows, sever supply chains, and choke off growth. For deficit countries, that means acting to stop unsustainable borrowing and prioritise the investment and structural reforms that drive up growth. For surplus countries, it means taking action to reduce subsidies and other trade distortions, as well as measures to boost domestic consumption. Second, we should promote open and balanced trade, taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government, and I'm proud of the agreements we've reached and the progress that we've made with partners like India and the EU, benefiting our economies and creating new opportunities for our people. Third, in an era of instability, we need to make our economies more resilient. In the UK, this means an unshakable commitment to fiscal discipline. And it means investing in growth in critical areas like clean energy production. We want to work with partners around the world on this to protect us all from future energy shocks. And we want to act together to secure vital supply chains, including for critical minerals. Fourth, we need to reform the international rules-based system so that it is fit for the modern world. We need to work together to ensure organisations like the WTO are more able to be agile with new rules to meet modern challenges like environmental and digital trade, and better and more flexible decision-making processes so that those who want to make progress can get on and do it. Finally, we do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance.
Economy and minimize inequality. Emerging technologies such as crypto asset, digital tokens, including Bitcoin, may create both opportunities and risks. Therefore, Indonesia proposes that the G20 initiate dialogue on intelligence economy. Indonesia believes that every country is entitled to chart its own development path because there is no single model that fits all. There is no such thing called the best method. Cooperation must empower, not dictate. Cooperation must uplift, not create dependency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. I now would like to call upon the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade and Worship of Argentina,